And later, Champions of Change, we're getting ready to unveil the top 10. I'll do that with Second Cup co-founder Frank O'Day later in the program. Well, you know, this is a big night in our Champions of Change project. For months, we've been on the hunt for Canada's top volunteers, people making a difference in your community or around the world, and we've received about 2,000 nominations. Last week, we narrowed that down to the top 50. Tonight, drum roll, we reveal the top 10. Then it's up to you. You vote and decide Canada's Champions of Change. Now, before we announce the finalists, we want you to introduce you to our panel of judges who made the difficult choice, and it was a difficult one, and came up with the top 10. The judges come from all walks of life, some more famous than others, but all making a difference. Like Margaret Trudeau, Canada's most famous political wife who now helps kids in Africa.
We should celebrate volunteers because they give us the best gift of all. They give us time, their time. They give us their hearts, their commitment.
Rahul Singh has traveled the world with Global Medic, most recently Pakistan, which was ravaged by floods.
What I look for in a volunteer is compassion, dedication, and commitment.
Commitment is something all our judges know well. Sharon Leslie Acous, who helps people fighting addiction in Saskatoon, Tanika Morgan, who helps young women get off welfare and back to school. And when Canadians think of giving, Terry Fox often comes to mind. Now his brother Fred Fox is keeping Terry's legacy alive as part of his foundation, which raises money for cancer research.
Mom often said that, we're, as a family, we're the messengers, but if it wasn't for the volunteers that are out there to commit their time and dedicate what they have to keeping Terry's dream alive, we wouldn't be here.
So who keeps these judges in line? Well, that's Frank O'Day's job. He chairs the judges panel, and he's truly a champion of change. When he was in his 20s, O'Day was an alcoholic panhandling on the streets of Toronto. O'Day says it was volunteers who helped turn his life around. He's the co-founder of the Second Cup, and he gives back to communities here in Canada and right around the world. You know, and that's what this project's all about. People here at home and around the world who are making a difference. 2 people will be named Champions of Change. One working here in Canada, another abroad. And those 2 will come from the list of our top 10. So how did the judges come up with the short list? Well, our camera had access inside the deliberation room for the 2 intense days as the judges faced off over their favorites. Take a look. As the judges arrived for their weekend of work, I couldn't help thinking, who would volunteer for this job? Sure, they get to choose the top 10 finalists and give them each $10,000 for their charity.
We're going to judge today category by category.
But the judges have 50 outstanding Canadians to pick from, which means, of course, 40 won't make the cut.
I don't know how we're going to do that.
It's very hard to judge when everybody is exemplary.
The impact of what they'll do with the dollars is great, and it's important for us to look at that, but we are supposed to be recognizing volunteer contribution here.
Are we rewarding the success of the project, or are we rewarding the enthusiasm and...
Oh boy, maybe 2 days won't be long enough.
But every nomination you looked at, didn't you think, oh, this is the best one? Yeah. And then you look at the next one, it's like, this is the best one.
But like it or not, they have to choose. Stephen Bronfman suggests the judges should measure the impact of the volunteers' work.
At the end of the day, if someone's, affecting 50,000 people versus someone who's affecting 10, they're all great stories again, but I go towards a scale.
Is that all right? Is that acceptable?
Well, now after having a chance to review the final 50, they have to start cutting.
Pamela, this is a wow story.
Pamela's a great story.
As they pit one candidate against the other, it starts to pit the judges against each other. Rahul Singh's passion is international aid, so he's campaigning hard for a woman who teaches job skills to widows in Sri Lanka.
Remember, this is a male-dominated society, war-torn. Like, this is impact for life, right?
And bring Tamil and Sinhalese
We got to increase the prize money. We got to...
the pressure.
You got to do it. Get the boss on the phone. I'll talk.
Well, not so fast, because Ruth McKenzie thinks her candidate should make the cut.
I just think his story is incredible.
He's a volunteer who teaches self-defense to girls in the Philippines.
I think there's also a very powerful connection when a man is teaching young girls who are incredibly vulnerable how to protect themselves.
And he's taking volunteers over with him to help creating that culture of volunteers.
He's given his time, and he takes all his holidays on his own money. He's leaving his daughters to protect other daughters.
And if we're talking about impact here, I mean, he's taught close to 10,000 children, 10,000 girls.
I think it's great to teach thousands.
Yeah.
I just think that, if you can give people a widow post-war, I mean, like, it's not Canada.
We should just leave the, give you the Lobby of the Day award now. Don't play the game anymore.
Are we ready for the vote? Jorge.
In this category, it comes down to just one vote separating who's in and who's out. The judges may be divided, but there are no hard feelings. After all, they still have 9 more candidates to choose.
We're really identifying leaders and heroes for people to look up to. I think it's phenomenal.
I tell you though, I've never given anybody 10 grand before. I felt pretty cool.
As the day goes on and the judges hear story after story, what it really highlights is there is so much need out there.
So take a moment, please, to read them.
And these volunteers have touched the lives of so many people, including, it turns out, one of the judges.
She's the most amazing creature that I've ever met.
Sharon Leslie Acous recognizes one of the names on the list, so she bows out of the vote.
I know her and walked with her, so I should back out, right?
The candidate is a woman who organizes the Walk for Justice. It's a march for the missing and murdered women of Canada's First Nations.
I've never met anyone so charismatic. Just people were just giving her stuff because, she's this thing is really affected a lot of people, and I mean it's really close to home for me because my foster sister was one of the ones that went missing on the Picton farm. So I'm really well, yeah. I'm sorry. I just don't even have any words.
And in this moment, it's clear this is so much more than a contest.
We've got to empower the women to stand up and to say this is not good enough for my mother, my sisters, my friends. This is not enough.
It was emotionally draining, but in the end, the judges finally came up with their top 10.
Thank you all. It has been a wonderful weekend of choice. I feel humbled by the work that some of these people have done.
Sure, it was hard work. But like all volunteers, the judges were moved, they were inspired, and they made a difference. And all it cost them was a bit of their time.
So thanks everybody for pitching in, and have a great and safe trip home. Thanks very much.
Had a chance to meet with the judges, great group of people, and we thank them for all the work that they did. And when we come back, the top 10 revealed. Frank O'Day will join me here in studio to announce the finalists, and we'll tell you how you can get involved to choose Canada's Champions of Change. Stick around for that. Song's starting to grow on me. Welcome back. We're about to reveal the top 10 volunteers in our Champions of Change. And to help us out with that, we want to bring in the chair of the judges panel, Frank O'Day. Frank, ever since I started this, people have said to me, how are you going to decide the top 10? And I've always been happy to say, it's not me. It's Frank. You and the judges. It was pretty tough, though.
It was tough. It was draining, but it was very energizing. Here were a bunch of people who came together, never knew each other before, hadn't met each other, came together to deal with an issue of reducing or choosing 10 people from 50 wonderful volunteers from across the country.
And that's the thing. It's tough because in most things you've got the black hats, you've got the bad guys. You've got 50 do-gooders here.
Absolutely. Everyone better than the other. I mean, it was really, fortunately it was broken into categories so we could sort of split it out a little bit in that way. But the committee was so great. I mean, everybody was pitching in and working hard, came from different angles. It gave us such a great view of Canadians, and choosing these people allowed us to think about Canada in a whole different way. It was a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, let's get down to it. This is the moment people have been waiting for as we look at the 10 finalists in our Champions of Change. You mentioned it's been broken down into categories. We've got somebody in the international and somebody doing work domestically Canadian, so we'll start with social justice category. And Jorge de Guzman, after visiting Thailand and seeing kids there working in the sex trade, he decided to start teaching girls self-defense, trying to empower them. Also in this category, here at home, is Gladys Raddick. After losing her niece along BC's Highway of Tears, she started working to raise awareness about missing and murdered Aboriginal women here in Canada.
Both these folks are wonderful. You know, and Gladys, take Gladys. I mean, here she is. She's gone through tragedy after tragedy, lost her niece, hit and run accident on herself, and turned tragedy into a challenge and turned it into fighting for and advocating for women that are missing and abused. What a story. What a great Canadian story.
And as we saw in the tape earlier, also brought the panel to tears when they heard her story. It was something else, and that shows about, you know, the commitment. Okay, moving on to environment category now. Eliza Olson. She's been working to preserve wetlands in BC since the 1980s. And Jeff Schnur, while he was on a trip to Tanzania, he was asked to help plant a forest. Well, soon after that, he started his own organization to plant and sustain forests there. Great stories.
Great stories indeed. You know, Jeff, a young guy, 25 years old, wonderful guy, working hard, goes to Tanzania, discovers a problem. The people of Tanzania ask him to help, and he's got the skills and abilities to do so, restore their environment. What a wonderful story. It's now his motive and his passion and everything. And he was 25 years old. Which is a wonderful story.
It's a great thing, because a lot of the volunteers we were seeing seem to skew a little older in the nominees that we were seeing. It's great to see somebody young getting that and hopefully inspire others. Okay, let's go to the education, community, and culture category. Here we have Bobby Hayes. Bobby helped kids in one of the poorest neighborhoods in St. John, New Brunswick, giving them hot meals and a place to play sports. Then we have Bob Davison, an RCMP officer who builds schools in Haiti. Less than 2% of kids graduate high school in that country. Bob hopes to change that.
You know, Bob, RCMP, McDonald's franchisee, could be retired, sitting in Florida playing golf. Instead of that, he's 5 months a year in Haiti working with kids. Kids building schools, giving them something to eat. What a wonderful story.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, too, because a lot of people say, I don't have the time to volunteer. Here's a guy who has got that excuse. Ignores him.
And he's out there.
And he's out there. It's great. Okay, let's go to the housing and infrastructure category. Victor Fernandez. He's a Canadian firefighter working in Latin and South America, making sure firefighters there get the equipment they need to do their jobs safely. Also in this category, we have Welde Yamane. He came to Canada as a refugee. Now he volunteers his time with Habitat for Humanity in Saskatoon. Great.
You know, each category was so difficult. Weldy, another young man, comes to Canada after horrible travel and trying to immigrate, doesn't speak the language, arrives in Saskatoon of all places, and realizes volunteering, giving something back to the community, but not only to give something back to the community, by the same token he learns English, he learns a skill. Give us more of these immigrants. This is a wonderful story.
Yeah, we saw that too in the nominees, that there were a lot of new Canadians who were in there, and that was their thing. They felt they were happy to get into this country and they wanted to give back, and they were doing that through volunteering.
Absolutely.
Really,
Weldy's a great story.
I love it. Okay, but last but not least, there's the health and wellness category. Lindsay Wilms is from Vancouver and volunteers with a summer camp for kids with cancer. Then we have Christopher Opio. He lives in BC too, but spends time in his native Uganda, helping the people there get access to clean water. Seems like another story there of a new Canadian out there to make a difference.
Another new Canadian, exactly. And you know, he saw his own brother die of water that was contaminated. And he realized how important it was to give water back to his communities, and he's done that. 42,000 people have clean drinking water because Opio, out of northern BC, working in Uganda, doing some wonderful things.
Seems that BC wrapped up on this one. If we pit provinces, I think 4 came from BC, which is interesting. Okay, starting next Monday, and every Monday after that, for the next 5 weeks, you'll get to know the top 10 and why they made the cut, beginning with Lindsay Wilms and Christopher Opio next week. So, Frank, you and the judges got this down from 50 to 10, but now it's up to Canadians.
Now it's up to Canadians. Please vote. I mean, this is really important because this is Canadians talking to Canadians. These are Canadians that represent all of the wonderful values of Canada. Now it's our job to support them, to recommend them, to vote for them, to get our friends to vote for them. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah, spread the word, spread the gospel. You've done the heavy lifting now, Frank.
Your turn.
Yeah, we pass the baton on now. Let's get Canadians to get involved in this and to really celebrate the great work that you have underlined with this. Frank, thank you for everything you've done. And to pick Canada's Champions of Change, just head to cbc.ca/change to cast your vote. And while you're there, you can learn more about a special award given to an 11th volunteer whose work caught the eye of the judges. There was a special judges award. You can also learn more about our volunteers in tomorrow's Globe and Mail. Look for a special CBC News Outpost magazine insert with the profiles of the top 10.